Hi, my name is Jason Romeko, and on behalf of the Service Plan Group, I'd like to welcome you to the third episode of The Rainmakers, our exclusive business content series where we help clients like you make it rain. And today in the studio, I have Mr. Matthias Bruhl, CEO of Media Plus International, who's going to talk to us about the new winners of Data-Driven Concepts. Matthias, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It's good to be here. Yeah. Unusual in these times, so it's even better to be here.
Exactly, so it's nice to see you in person. And for those of you who also think it's unusual that you have a creative director and a head of media together in one space, well, welcome to the House of Communication concept. That's how we roll. So Matthias, we use Uber Creativity at Service Plan to build best brands. How do you see the role of media in Uber Creativity?
If I can remember that correctly, Jason, it's your definition of Uber Creativity. It's a higher form of innovation that happens when disciplines, talent, culture, media, and tech come together in an interconnected way, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you see from the definition, media plays a big role in it. And it's not only media, it's also related to tech, obviously, to data, and to the talent we are talking about, right?
Yep. Okay, so with that in mind, how has the screen age changed the world of media?
The screen age made media much more complex and more difficult, so to speak. So if you look back some years, not too far, the funnel was quite straight, right? So it started with triggering awareness, then consideration, and then in the end, action. Yeah? And it was quite easy to talk about. Nowadays, where consumers deal with different channels, different devices, they switch channels and devices in a way you cannot really predict, it's much harder to really predict the outcome. And in that complexity, it's super important to have data as the basis of everything you do, right? Because with the power of data, we can detect the signals of single consumers and really can see how they use media, the different touch points, different devices, how they react on advertising, what they like about brands, things like that, yeah. And yeah, that's exciting.
Okay, and is this kind of approach, is this future ready?
If you think it in a very consequent way, it's absolutely future ready, yeah. But that means really that you have to put the understanding of your consumer in the middle of everything you are doing, right? If you know how a consumer thinks about your brand, how he reacts to the different messages you send him, how he uses his or her devices, then it's for you as a media agencies of nowadays, it's the entrance of being as effective as you could be.
Okay, so have streaming services, have they thrown a spanner into the works?
Absolutely. So it's in a way a challenge, but you can look at it like, is it now a threat or where are the opportunities? Obviously, streaming services are very successful and you experience that at the moment, especially under these COVID circumstances, where you use Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney, whatever it might be. And there are popping up more and more of these platforms. Yeah? So unfortunately, these platforms are ad-free. Yeah? And by the consumers, this is seen as one of the main advantages. So there are different workarounds you could use as a client, like product placement or contextual targeting, or using modelings in order to come closer to these audiences you lost. But on the other hand, I'm quite sure, and we see that already happening, that these platforms will open up opportunities for advertising, for clients to step in. Yeah? They know exactly about the value that is in there, and they are already keen to monetize on that. We as an agency, our ambition is for our clients to have our finger on the pulse and see what happens. And when an opportunity turns up, you and me, we would sit together and explore what does it mean for clients and how could a client be a first mover in these environments of the premium platforms, right?
Okay. Well, that sounds exciting. I'd love to get a brief on that. So can you tell us how important is it to invest in media? Isn't it expensive?
Of course, you need some money to invest into it. Is it expensive? That's the question. I mean, it's not expensive if you get a concrete value out of it, a value in a form and shape like what are your goals as a brand? Do you want to make your brand big, achieve awareness? Do you want to trigger sales, something like that? So the value has to be a concrete output. And this into a relation of an investment, this is the question we have to answer as a media agency of nowadays. Yeah? So that's why Media Plus is completely focused on the growth of our clients. And I think not only Media Plus, but Media Plus inside the concept of a house of communications. Yeah? Because we are all working on the goals of our clients.
And how do you determine, for example, how much you need to invest to reach the desired outcome?
It all starts with definition of what do you really want to achieve. Let's say it's awareness and consideration of the brand. Then we would come up with the media strategy which fits to these goals, yeah? Which could talk about using high reach media like TV or other formats in the streaming area, for example, or outdoor. Or if we talk about sales, then we might come up with a completely different strategy, which is more focused on triggering concrete conversations with clients. Yeah. So it's really depending on the overall goal you have.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Media Plus International. How do you guys help?
So we work with a very concrete process. I think what's important to explain that the underlying layer is the power of data. So we are fully focused on leveraging the intelligence of data. And then we basically work in 4 pillars. We have a name for this system. It's called ICOS, Integrated Communication Operating System.
ICOS.
ICOS. But that's 4 pillars. So the first pillar is the idea of working in interdisciplinary teams in a very interconnected way. The second pillar is that we have an advanced media planning and activation process. Third pillar is that we have an operational workflow which very much fits to the workflow of our clients to make it more efficient to work with our clients. And the last pillar would be tech, and tech would support everything we are doing in media when we do activation and implementation of media.
So you've mentioned a few times today the House of Communication. Could you explain to everybody what is a House of Communication and what does it do?
Yep, basically, as you know, we are working in the concept of houses of communication in all markets. Yeah? For me, it's a very unique offering with some advantages. We work multidisciplinary. We have the ability to shape our client teams around the needs of the client, like a second skin. And that would make it quicker. So speed is always a factor which is quite important. Flexibility is the other thing. And just being really agile. Yeah? And that for me is the major advantage of the House of Communication.
Okay, and does this concept change the way you recruit in media?
Yes, definitely. In former times, you were recruiting like media buying specialists or account managers or media planners, things like that. An organization, a media agency organization nowadays has to really reevaluate the way how they are recruiting, because it's much more digital. Tech plays a bigger role, data plays a bigger role. That's why, in the meantime, we are searching for other profiles as well.
Like what?
Like, for example, data engineers, like audience science, like behavioral specialists, things like that. And these profiles would be an addition to what we already have, like media planners still play a role, and we need generalists, but we need the deep expertise of people who are really deep into data, deep into digital, deep into tech.
Well, I like the sci-fi kind of approach of that. It feels very Minority Report sometimes. So when you're working now with clients, and particularly at a distance, etc., how do you kick off the process, and how do you establish trust?
I think trust is the most important thing in an agency-client relationship, yeah. And what we do is, first of all, the usual thing. We present ourselves with our creds and hopefully bring across our philosophy, key beliefs as an agency, our culture, things like that. And we, of course, share cases that we did for clients, how we tackle different problems, things like that. Ultimately, it's very important to experience how we really work, in a live situation. We just launched an audit platform called XO, Digital Excellence Platform. That gives us and the clients, a great opportunity, to be really honest. Because what we are doing with this platform is doing a health check on the different digital disciplines of a client, like search, like performance, like social. So we are digging a little bit deeper into that, telling the client where we see some strengths and opportunities and also threats in which areas. We would benchmark it to other clients, and we would come up with concrete recommendations. What would we do better, and what would the outcome be that we deliver for it? Yeah, and that's an interesting way of really testing us out.
Okay, so I believe you've brought an offer for our viewers today. What are you going to offer them?
Exactly. So for the first 3 emails, we would offer an audit, like a paid, owned, earned platform audit. We would use our digital excellence platform as well, so you get to know that. And we would really try to analyze your strength and your capabilities in the different areas, and we would come up with concrete recommendations, 2 weeks later. And I think that gives clients an interesting opportunity to really test that out.
So Matthias, thank you so much for coming in person today. It means a lot. It's always good to spend time with you. And to all of you, thank you so much for joining us on this 3rd episode of The Rainmakers. And until next time, let's make it rain. Okay, that's enough.